Welcome back to r/NeighborsFromHell, where people share stories about their crazy neighbors, and if you're new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community, and without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. The first one is titled, "Neighbor Stole My Car Twice in a Month." Have you ever had your car stolen from you? Some of you might say yes, but have you ever had a car stolen from you right in front of your eyes by the same person twice? This is the story of how my car got stolen 3 times by our neighbor, and I had to fight a tooth and nail in order for the police to actually do something about it. A little background story, my husband and I live in a pretty rural neighborhood. We moved here during the summer and we decided to rent an apartment while we are saving up for a house. My husband drives a Ford truck, I drive a Jeep, and we have a third car that is like our backup car. I drove it a lot at the end of high school and during my college days, and while I could easily get rid of it, it is an exceptionally reliable car to today's standards. My husband and I both usually work overnight shifts and we work 7 days on, 7 days off. In our off weeks, we really enjoy traveling, hiking, and just simply exploring the world together. Because of this, we are not really home that often, and when we are, well, we are sleeping. And by the way, Ripe Stars, that sounds like a pretty good work schedule if you ask me. Anyway, both my husband's truck and my Jeep fit under our apartment's carports, and the third car stays in a regular parking spot. A couple of weeks before the fall season, our third car ended up getting a flat after my husband drove it home from work. Because of our wonky schedules, we were not going to be able to fix it for about another week or 2, so it stayed in that parking spot. Well, a few days before Thanksgiving, we woke up one morning and we were finally going to get it fixed. However, when we went into the parking spot, it was not there. We looked around a little and found it parked a few spaces down, and all of our belongings were missing from it. Not only this, but there was someone else's driver's license sitting in the center console, as bright as day, and a gym bag of clothes in the back seat. I have documents that could prove this was my car, so my husband and I called the police officers. While we were waiting for the police officers to come, our neighbors came downstairs and were about to load more junk into it. My husband confronted them about it right then and there, and of course this turned into a huge verbal altercation and they ended up taking off in another car. Unfortunately, our complex does not have security cameras, so none of this was caught on tape. Neither was there footage of them stealing the car. When the police officers came, they collected their belongings from the car as evidence, but told us that they could not do anything because 1, they did not see these people actually steal our car, and number 2, they did not see them driving the car. I thought this was absolutely insane because I had documents that proved the car was mine and the belongings in the car were clearly not mine nor my husband's. Well, upon further inspection it turns out that they hotwired the car and ripped out the ignition. I honestly don't know that much about cars, so I was surprised they could even drive it without the ignition. I was obviously upset because even though the car was old, it was reliable and held many memories for my husband and me. Besides this, hundreds of dollars worth of personal belongings between my husband and I were now missing. I tried to switch apartment units with the property management office, but they would not let us because they said we would be breaking our lease and would be required to pay the fee. All of this was really frustrating to me. My car was damaged, I did not know how to move it because I don't know how to hotwire a car, and the apartment complex and police were no help. So the car ended up sitting there until Christmas because neither my husband or I knew how to start the car now. We ended up traveling out of the country on one of the weeks we were off, and although I was nervous that the car would be stolen again, but I also figured that they could have stolen it since it had been already sitting there for a month now. Well, when we came back from our trip, we had found the car moved again, and it now had even more junk in it. I figured that the police would not do anything about it, so I suggested to my husband that we get a security camera that can reach that spot. Luckily for us, the carport where our other cars were sat directly across from the area of where we were finding our third car. The next day we ended up purchasing a cheap security camera and pointed it towards the stolen car. The car sat there again for another week until we caught them driving off in it, and I was ecstatic that we finally had proof that they stole it. My husband decided to contact a lawyer before we got the police involved because he was afraid the police still would not do anything because of our previous issue with them. The lawyer advised us that we go to the police station in person and hand over evidence that they had stolen the car, and even claimed that we could press charges for vandalism since they damaged the ignition and hotwired it. We followed the lawyer's advice, and after several court dates we finally got justice. Because of the camera footage and the driver's license they had previously confiscated from the car, they were able to prove who stole the car. They ended up serving up to a year in county jail for car theft and also had to pay for the damage he had placed on the car. On top of this, he also had to participate in a community service program that focused on cleaning up vandalism throughout the city. There is nothing better than driving down the road and seeing criminals clean the sidewalks and pick up trash. My husband and I ended up moving out of the apartment complex after our lease was up. Even though we had gotten what we wanted at the end of it, I just didn't feel comfortable that the neighbors knew where we lived. Besides this, all 3 of our cars now fit in a garage that only we have a key to, so it makes me feel a lot safer. And by the way, Ripe Stars, as mentioned in a previous video, I now have a, let's say, new old microphone, meaning that I bought the same microphone again, it is just a newer version. Please let me know if the audio quality is worse or better, or maybe even the same as before. I'm especially curious about the volume, whether it needs to be more quiet or louder, so I would really appreciate your feedback in the comments. The next one is titled Textbook Malicious Compliance. So, my husband is a veteran, 100% disabled, so all of his care is through the VA. And guys, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think VA means Veteran Affairs. I would like to point out that we are very happy with his care currently and that he is getting excellent care now, but that was not always the case. My husband had an aneurysm, abdominal aortic aneurysm to be exact, and the VA was going to fix it because it was large and it had a 25% chance of breaking on any given day, which would mean I would lose my husband, so I was very invested in making sure this took place. We live in Middle America, so the hospital where they are doing the procedure is 200 miles away. We have to stay there while he is in hospital, so we decided to send my son to my mom in order to keep him out of the area while dad is recouping. While we are at the airport sending my son off, we get a call from the hospital that the surgery is cancelled because a machine broke. So we head back to the hospital and I asked the nurse when we could expect to be rescheduled, and she said that it could be a couple of months. I explained, I was actually nice about it, that we needed to have it done before a couple of months, and was there no other VA facility in the area that could do the surgery, and this is what I was told.
If you people would talk to your congressman about funding, you people wouldn't have to deal with these things. But because you people think we owe you, you people need to get a grip. If you have a problem, call your congressman.
So, being a good army spouse I did, we walked out of the hospital and I called them directly. Told them what was going on, they called the head of the VA for the district, who called the head of the VA hospital we were at, who called the nurse, who got fired. He had the surgery a week later at a well-known medical center, not VA, and all was well. Afterwards, the head of the VA called me to ask why I couldn't have handled this in-house. I explained that I was a good military wife and did what I was told to by someone higher up. And indeed, Ripe Stars, that is really textbook malicious compliance. However, I would love to hear from you. Do you prefer malicious compliance or revenge stories? Let me know what you prefer in the comments. And the next one is titled, Don't Leave Early, Son. Like a lot of the stories here, my malicious compliance was due to scheduling. I was a system administrator for a big 3-letter telecom company in the one smaller department. And by the way, Ripe Stars, if any of you can guess which telecom company OP means, you will get a cookie from me. Anyway, there were 2 admins, me and Jay. Jay was awesome, super intelligent, very friendly, and was great at his job. He and I decided that I would come in early and he would stay late, so there was more coverage during the day. It worked great for both of us for a few years. I would get to work around 6:30 am, I would review all the system-generated reports overnight, check the health of the servers and database, and then generate the daily reports for various managers throughout the company, including my own manager and his boss. After 9 hours, plus 1 for lunch, I would go home around 4:30 every day. Jay would show up around 10:30 and would usually be the last person to leave around 7. My old boss left and my new boss T was a major idiot and a huge a-hole. He knew nothing about IT and should have never been put in charge of people. He was a nepotism hire. After about 6 months of T working there, he brought me into his office. He said that he was very concerned about how I would just up and leave each day at 4:30, so consistent that you could set your watch by it. I tried to explain that I am there at 6:30, 3 hours before he showed up and 4 hours before Jay showed up. But T was having none of that. I was leaving way too early. I asked him what my hours should be. He said I should be more like Jay. He said, Jay is here long after everyone else leaves. Once again, I tried to point out that Jay gets there at 10:30, 4 hours after me, and leaves by 7. An 8.5-hour day with an hour lunch, where I get there at 6:30 and leave at 4:30, a 10-hour day with an hour lunch. T just couldn't comprehend that. So I complied. I told him that I would be the last one to leave from now on. T was happy. So I came to work about 10:15 the next morning, which was a Friday. I started my normal routine and about 10 minutes later Jay came in. We worked the day and the last person, with the exception of Jay and me, left around 6:30. We both left at 6:45 and I made sure that Jay left the building before me. The following Monday I once again showed up at 10:15. This time there was about a dozen emails and a few voicemails from managers and executives all over the company wanting to know why they haven't received their daily reports. These reports were used in various Monday morning meetings all over the globe. I explained to them that my hours have changed and they would be getting their daily reports by 1 p.m. One of those executives was my boss's boss's boss. Before the end of the day, I was in her office with T and T's boss. I explained to her the same situation that I had explained to T before this all started. She immediately told T that the work I did between 6:30 and 10:30 was mission critical to the entire company and I was to immediately go back to my old schedule. I then sheepishly pointed out that 6:30 to 4:30 was a 9-hour workday and Jay's 10:30 to 7 was 7.5-hour workdays. I said I would be happy to go back to a 6:30 start time, but was going to limit my hours to 8-hour days, since I didn't get overtime pay. So, starting the next day, Tuesday, and every day after, I showed up at 6:30, did my work, and smiled and waved at T when I went home at 3:30 later that afternoon. So consistent, you could set your watch by it. Added to add 3 things, I don't get overtime because I was salary, but my salary was based on a 40 to 45-hour week. To those who say I threw Jay under the bus, he was well aware of the situation and supported me. Plus, as I said above, he was absolutely amazing at his job. They would not touch him with a 10-foot pole. And Ripe Stars, I'm curious if you also have ever worked any jobs where the boss just expects you to stay longer, even though in the time you stay longer, you pretty much don't do anything. I gotta say, from personal experience, I really despise that. What's the point of being at work if you don't really have to do anything? Especially if you already stayed long enough. You pretty much get paid for doing nothing, which seems absolutely stupid in my opinion. And the next one is titled, Don't Pick Fights with the Army. So, this all happened in the last few weeks. For reference, I'm a battalion level officer in the Army Reserve. While I was getting my master's, I took an overnight gig doing unimportant things. Mostly my coworkers are 19 to 22-year-olds in college or just out of high school. Pay was good and I could focus on my studies all night. I graduated with my master's in 2018, but the job market for my field in my area was hard for a while. I had a good relationship with the owner of my company and the pay was really good. Plus the army has me working in my field, so I just decided to stay. Fast forward to 6 months ago, I have been here 4 years now, every manager or supervisor has nothing but praise for me, and I have made 0 mistakes that cost the company any money or time. New boss, good guy, flexible, works with people to get people's schedules they want. But over time, personal issues or something get in his head. I suspect he doesn't like struggling to schedule around my military duties, but who knows? He starts name-calling, being condescending, or ranting and raving at me for unclear reasons every time he sees me. He wants things
cleaned up,
but is never able to quite articulate what that means, and my attempts never satisfy him. One time he ranted at me for sweeping wrong, another time for calling him when nobody showed up to relieve me for an hour past my shift. And the guys on the schedule said they were told they didn't need to come in. When he does manage to give a specific instruction, he will show up the next day and rant and rave and yell that I didn't do it before he told me. Well, now my comfortable, well-paying job is no longer peaceful, and I have better things to do than listen to a man-child be angry at the world every day. So I hop on Indeed and apply for a couple jobs in my field. By now I have the master's and 6 years experience doing it in the army, so I land some interviews and within a few weeks get an offer for double my salary. Soon after, as I am still working on the onboarding process for the new company, he becomes enraged that the garbage can is dirty. I kid you not, a garbage can is dirty. I listen to him rant and name call and all that fun stuff, and the next day I roll my eyes and wash the garbage can. He responds by yelling at me some more because I didn't wash it before being told to, called me some names and then threatened to fire me. So I shrugged and wrote up my 2 weeks notice and handed it to him the next day. Turned out that threat was a bluff. He is now very short-staffed and he blew up again. The next day though, I noticed something peculiar on our work app. My time off request filed months ago for upcoming military orders had been denied. I laughed it off because obviously that is a misclick on his part, but nope. I come in for work again and he very smugly informs me that I'll be working through the whole next week. I have military obligations.
I don't care. I denied your time off request.
I have orders from the military. I cannot be here.
Nope, I denied it.
You cannot do that.
Yes, I can. This is what you get for not respecting me and acting like a child. I'm denying your time off request, so figure it out.
Can I have it in writing that you are denying me unpaid time off for military duty? Ladies and gentlemen, if asked for something in writing, a smart man would stop and reconsider. A smart man would actually have realized that well before talking to me, that trying to tell an army battalion that they cannot have one of their captains because a 35-year-old civilian middle manager is being petty is a really dumb idea and is in fact illegal. But my boss is not a smart man. Maybe he once was, but he is now an angry, vengeful, petty man that at this point believes he has won a mighty victory over his enemy. So he puts it in writing and then walks off with a confident swagger, shouting over his shoulder,
"Figure it out."
If you insist. So after my shift I wait for our main office to open and I call the company's owner for the first time since this new boss started. Friendly chat, and then I tell him I'm calling just to warn that his manager is trying to pick a fight with the DoD and that I wanted to call and let him know and get it resolved unofficially. The owner thanked me for calling him, assured me that I would of course have those days off, and asked me what my perceptions were of the new boss. I gave him my opinion that he was once great but has turned into the most toxic, abusive person I have ever worked for. We wished each other well and then hung up. I don't know what happened next, but I suspect the owner politely and calmly informed him that small businesses don't like their managers picking fights with the federal government, because when my new schedule came out I had my drill days off and my boss avoided me after that. I am taking a vacation after the drill and then starting my new job as an expert in my field on Memorial Day, working autonomously with clients, and he will remain there, angry, frustrated and stressed. I, indeed, figured it out, boss man. And as veterans of Reddit, ripe stars, we of course know you never mess with a soldier, or pretty much the military in general. And ripe stars, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you still cannot get enough of my content, then I would highly suggest to check out my endless binge watch playlist, which will soon show up in the left corner of the screen. In addition, I would really appreciate it if you could not only subscribe to the channel, but also turn on the bell notifications, which you can do by clicking on the little bell icon right next to the subscribe button. This will help my channel tremendously, and this will make sure that you don't miss any of my videos. Furthermore, if you want to see additional ripe content that I don't post on YouTube, then I would suggest to head on over to patreon.com/ripeyoutube for more than 50 exclusive videos that you will not see anywhere else. Thank you so much for your amazing daily support, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.